All right, hi everyone. Thanks for coming. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about unlocking new NFT use cases with ultra high throughput. And well, first of all, what is ultra high throughput? And I'm going to be very honest. Ultra high throughput is an excuse to call something UHT, which is a type of milk, and I find it very funny. But it is true. So Tezos is a self-upgrading blockchain. It's been live since 2018. It's gone through a bunch of upgrades. They're named after cities. So we started with Athens and then Babylon, and going on and on and on. And so now we're at Mumbai. And the Mumbai upgrade was very, very significant because we basically overhauled the entire scaling capacity of the chain. So it was a normal L1. It's now a L0, you could call it. It can support a lot of rollups. And by supporting these rollups, we're going to have a demo in the coming months showing about 1 million transactions per second. And what's sometimes people look at this and they say, well, why do you need that? Maybe your blocks are not completely full. Why would you need that much throughput? And I would say that there's quantity as a quality of its own in some sense, and the type of things you can do when you know you really have a very, very large amount of throughput is different from the type of things that you would do if you didn't have that. So I'll talk a little bit about what it opens up, because we really haven't been historically in this industry, in a space where you really had all the throughput in the world that you wanted. So it's colored applications to a large extent. Okay, so as you probably know, current layer ones frequently gets congested, uh, especially if you are doing an NFT mint. Congestion is going to be very common. So during peak NFT minting period, everyone comes in and they want to get their NFT, and your transactions get delayed and they get queued. And it's a really bad user experience. No one really wants to do that. Part of it is due to the fact that sometimes these things are underpriced, so people are going to rush for it. That's hard to avoid. But sometimes it's just the sheer amount of people who want to do it, at the exact same time. And you might try to stagger it, but that's not great. Socially, like, people want to do it and they want to go, no, they want to post about it. Like every single website that has a social component has its spikes in traffic, because when something happens, everyone wants to connect at the same time and do the same thing. And other, and here's the thing: other transactions are affected by congestion. So even if you're not creating the congestion, but congestion is happening, you're going to suffer from it. So one example was uh, the Bored Apes land, the other side mint, and that created a huge backlog of transaction. So that's bad for them, but it's also bad for everyone else who was trying to use, in this case, the Ethereum blockchain at this time, and it leads to very, very high transaction fees. So pretty bad user experience we get from congestion. And so in the Tezos Mumbai upgrade, which happened a few weeks ago, so it's Mumbai, so M is 13th letter of the alphabet, so that's our 13th upgrade. I would say it's the first step towards a really ultra high throughput. We are missing one of the steps to really go much further, but we go pretty far with this. So what we're offering is smart rollups. Essentially, you can create your own chain. You can program it in any language you want: Rust, Python, Go, whatever. Create your own chain and run it on Mumbai. And each application can run a dedicated rollup. You don't have to pay for this. It's free. It's open source. It's not controlled by a small multi-sig. It doesn't have a token or anything like that. It's just software that you can use. And so you can run a dedicated rollup, and if you want really, really high throughput, you can use a data availability committee. Now, data availability committee are interesting. They're a trade-off between having things like a sidechain and having things like a rollup, which gives you a lot of decentralization and security, but also a lot of throughputs. And like I said, any language will do. It's very friendly to the standard development environment. Everything is kind of baroque in the blockchain world, but this is not very standard. And in the future, what we're working on at the moment is to have on a single rollup 1 million TPS. So we're building a special rollup for that, ultra high throughput rollup, UHT, again, like the milk. So, allowing you to do things like 10 million players playing concurrently, for example, and each making one transaction every 10 seconds. That's not that much. If you're building a game and you want to have 1 million live players at the same time, you're going to need this type of scale. So gaming is one use case. Here's what you could do. Once you can start writing very large amount of player data to the blockchain, you can fight in massive multiplayer battles at the same time, millions of players battling and trading with no congestion. You can bring more game data and logic on chain. What we've seen so far with games is that people will build a game, and then there'll be NFTs, and then you go and trade the NFTs outside the game. And part of the reason for that is because it's too expensive to put the game logic on the chain. You can't do it. It's just too much compute. But if you have all the compute in the world, you can actually do that. And so the rules of the game start being enforced by the chain itself. And I think it creates a more meaningful integration. So you can have all of this real-time data being streamed to the blockchain and upgraded at the same time. Let's say you upgrade an item, happens automatically. You can own a city tavern, and you can have a royalty paid every single time someone uses city tavern, for example, in a game. Again, simple things, but like if you're a game designer and you're thinking of these things as a game designer, you might say, oh yeah, that's normal. And then you put the blockchain hat and you say, oh, wait a second, there's going to be too many transactions. Well, no, not if you're really not counting. Ticketing, I think, is going to be interesting. A lot of people have wanted to do ticketing with NFTs. The problem is like an event where I'll have a lot of people coming at the same time. Is exactly that. It's congestion. So you have like a high volume of transaction in a short amount of time. And yeah, you can have actually like efficient tiered ticketing possibilities. You can engage with audience. You can add add-ons for their experience. And yeah, reduced transaction fees mean reduced business. So that's the type of use cases people have been chasing, but that has been hitting throughput limits. For art, I think there's a lot of interesting things. So Tezos is known as a place for artists. We have a very, very thriving art community on Tezos, on platforms like FXhash, Object.com, Teia, and others. There's other things you can do. So you can do really mass market. You can have very large drops for a cultural event. If you have a concert with 10,000 of attendees, that's the things you can do. You can have automatic real-time bidding, real-time interaction with NFTs. That is not just an interaction with a piece of software, but an actual interaction with the asset itself. Interactive art installation that respond to user inputs on the site. So you can really create engaging and immersive experience. The fact that you have basically no transaction fee at this level means it's accessible for institutions, artists, collectors, really anyone who wants to participate in a crypto art market. And it's a good way to democratize it and make it way more inclusive. And yeah, so part of this also is creating this like dynamic NFTs. It's not just an asset that's like been set once and doesn't move. It actually is like updated by the transaction that people are making on the chain. It has a life of its own, and it's reactive on the chain itself. All right, so if you want to learn more about rollups and other tools on Tezos, I encourage you to check this out. So to check out about Tezos Mumbai rollups, we have a website that will explain you how you can use them and how you can make your game better. We're building a really cool SDK about it. So be in touch if you want to build a rollup. We already have a few teams building on them. And also, we have now an SDK for Unity. Specifically, if you're a game developer, we see a lot of interesting interactions between games and NFTs. So you can build games using a familiar programming language and a familiar framework. You can have game functions which are similar to what you might find in Web2 games. And finally, if you use the Tezos SDK for Unity, you can get started, and you don't need a blockchain experience. If you're a game developer, a game designer, and you say, I'm interested in this, I want to add digital items to my game, the SDK is going to make it super easy for you. All right, thanks very much for attending. If you want to check out a little more, I tweet about this as well, so you can follow me on Twitter at Arthur B. Check out the Tezos website, www.tezos.com. And yeah, thank you for listening to my talk. Have a good one.